Hi, guys. Welcome back to the podcast School of Love, where we want to help you create parent-child relationships where you can talk about anything, especially about sexuality. And part of those conversations should definitely be honest, right? Today we're talking about parenting with honesty. Are you honest? We try to be honest, right? If I'm really honest right now, I have literally picked the only corner in this room that is not covered in a pile of laundry. I am literally in a jungle of laundry. Because, we're 6 people in this family and, we kind of are sometimes behind at putting all that laundry away. I have to say my husband is much more active than I am in doing that. If we expect honesty from our kids, we really need to be honest ourselves. And today I have a really great conversation with Justin Okamoto about honesty. And not only do we need to model it, but we also need to create a really deep relationship with our kids if we want them to be honest with us. One guideline I think we have is, how honest did I feel I could be with my parents? I'm sure we tried our best, but if we had any kind of blocks, maybe the relationship could have been a bit more deep, or maybe we didn't feel like our parents totally would accept us no matter what. And so maybe we can show that to our kids even more, to give them that safe space to be honest. And so I hope you enjoy this podcast, this episode, and let's really do our best to be honest. Hello, welcome back, everybody. I am here with Justin Okamoto. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. And today we want to talk about parenting with honesty. But first, can you let us know, what are you up to? How many kids do you have? Where's your wife from?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, hi everybody. First time on this podcast, and my name is Justin Okamoto. I am a pastor. So I pastor the Belvedere Family Community. It's a community in New York, and rather famous community, I would say, on a very historical property. We're very blessed to be here, and I've been pastoring for about 3 years. This is my 4th year, going to my 4th year. And I am married and blessed for 10 years now. 2013. Wait, does that mean it's 11 years? Because it's 2024. Yeah, so 11 years now, right? So I've been married for 11 years, and my wife is Japanese, and we have one son who is turning 6 in just a couple days, actually.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so you told me when we were communicating that honesty is your superpower. Yeah, why is that?
Well, I don't know if it's my superpower, but I've been told that it's something that I'm kind of, I guess, known for, even though, sometimes it even gets me into trouble. I've always felt it's important not to hide who we are and hide our story, and just to be honest, to be transparent with people, whether that be about how we are feeling in the current moment, how we're feeling about our life. I feel like, we live in a world where it's very normal and easy to kind of put on a mask, a face, for the sake of blending in, or to our desire to belong in a group or in a community. It's very easy to kind of just sacrifice our honesty for the sake of fitting in. I don't know. I've found that it's never really possible to feel completely, a sense of belonging, like a true sense of belonging, a true sense of love, of being loved, of being able to love others, unless you can actually bring your true self out there and to actually share from your real heart. So I try to do that as much as possible. I try to be as blunt and honest and real in my sermons as much as I can. Although I've learned that there are sometimes healthy limits of what I ought to share on a public stage. I've learned that through kind of, crossing those boundaries and learning, okay, maybe that's a bit too far, and maybe I got to bring in a little bit more. So learning to be a little bit more tactful about it, but still try to create that space where people can see that it's okay to be honest, no matter what position you're in, whether you're a leader or whether or not you are a parent or whatever role that you play in your life, that you can still be honest. So I guess that's why I said that.
Yeah, I really like that tie of really feeling like you belong, but then, yeah, then you need to be yourself. You need to be your authentic self. That's a good point that you brought up because sometimes we want to be honest. And then there's this tricky side of in which circles can I truly be honest? Maybe there's this aspect of trust that kind of goes with that. And then also being tactfully honest, like without hurting people's feelings. It's kind of a question like, how far do you go being your authentic self, but then yeah, in a safe way, I guess. We're actually going to
Right.
have a webinar called Safe Conversations. So I'm really hoping this kind of helps, like a tool like this, to be able to do those kind of things because it's really challenging sometimes. Have you found a way to overcome that kind of challenge, like finding the circles where you can be like completely honest? Yeah, someone also brought to my attention, like, you know, it's good to talk about certain things, but like certain audiences are just not ready for it. Which I can appreciate because, like, especially with School of Love, it's emphasized when you're going to talk about sexuality that you also are thinking of your child's age and you want to make it age appropriate and not just load down the whole heavy world issues on them. What do you think?
Well, I guess going back to the point of finding those spaces where you can be really honest, I do think we need a friend, a small group or some space where we can just really be totally unfiltered, that people can be with us no matter how we are, no matter how crazy what we have to share sounds. I feel like without that, like we don't get to experience what real love is and ultimately what God's love really is supposed to feel like. Like in physical form, like we can have like a concept of like God's unconditional love and God will love me no matter what. But if we don't actually like experience that in a relationship with a person, I think it's very difficult for it to go beyond just kind of like a conceptual idea of this kind of incredible, absolute, unchanging love that God has for us. I guess one of the things that I've learned is that it is important to have those kind of boundaries because I think for myself, I tended to like sometimes I can have this kind of like absolute character of like if I'm really into some principle or some idea, like I'll just go in it like 100%. So for me, it was like if I believe in honesty, then I should just push myself to be that way in any situation, in any environment, with any person. But I realized that basically honesty it is about it's about being vulnerable. It's about allowing yourself to take down that armor that we wear to guard our heart. I think when I was younger, I kind of looked at it more like a black and white, like, oh, that armor is bad and it's wrong and it's because we're not strong enough to take the blows that we wear that armor. But as I'm like getting older and going through different experiences and often having to learn through very painful experiences, that sometimes it is okay to wear that armor and to be smart about who we let in to kind of the deepest part of our hearts. My wife also helps me to understand many times. I don't have to share
Yeah,
everything.
that's true. Yeah, we still have to be sensitive to people's emotions and feelings. I feel like it's tricky sometimes. um, but yeah, I like how you said it. Like, it's mainly about letting this armor go and being vulnerable.
Right.
And I think like it's not only just about showing that to other people, but then also sometimes it's also with ourselves, right? Because sometimes we have to look at what's under that armor and see there is sometimes work to be done. And
Right.
but that doesn't mean there's any less love. It's just noticing the growth steps that we can take.
Right. I mean, that's really where it starts, is being honest with ourselves. And I think it's important to that honesty allows us to process what is going on inside. That's another thing about communicate, being able to first have that honest conversation with yourself to kind of sort it out, sort out what's really going on before you have that conversation with your spouse or have that conversation with your kids, because you don't want to just throw out that kind of undigested emotion or energy to kind of put the responsibility of digesting that somebody who really ought not to be doing that. I mean, if they're like a therapist or a coach, that's different, right? That's what they're there for. But I think it's not what our kids are here for, to be that they're not, that's not their responsibility, right? To create that space for us. It's really important to learn how to process. For me, prayer is a big help for that. I think just being able to share with God whatever's going on, whatever's happening in my life, and being unfiltered. I mean, I think if there's anybody that we ought to be able to be unfiltered with, I think it's God. I think God can take whatever we have to throw at him.
Totally, yeah. But yeah, going back to what you said, I really like just this little step of how you broke it down of like being honest with yourself is the first step, and then you can take the next step if it means being honest with someone else, just to have that little conversation of clarity, like, okay, this is why this is important to me. I think that just it might help in certain potential misunderstandings, maybe, because yeah, then it's not about attacking or pointing a finger at someone, but you're just facing your own values or whatever the issue is. I'm just thinking in retrospect of some things, like I today was expressing some boundaries or just some hopes, that I wanted to set for my kids with some other people, but I really didn't want them to feel attacked. And so, like, I was honest about some of my worries, but maybe having conversation with myself, honestly, like why this is important to me, that might have helped me to express it in a better way so that it's just showing, my priorities, and which are also for the benefit of the whole, from my perspective, rather than, I don't want to be like, coming across as pointing fingers or something like that. It was just, anyway. I just wanted to mention that that's a really good step to take, of having that honesty or sort of reflection on our own before we move on to speaking to others.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, as parents, we want to model honesty the best we can for our kids. Have you had any challenges in doing that with your son?
Well, my son, he is 5 years old. And I mean, it's amazing how, I mean, even though he's 5 years old, like, it is amazing to see how he's a human being, who goes through all kinds of emotions in his life, and, starting to see a lot of myself in him, even at such a young age. Right. And yeah, one of the things, I guess I could share one experience that I had that for me was quite a powerful moment with him, and kind of related to the whole, like, being able to be honest with ourselves, with where we're at, what we're feeling. Yeah, this was back when he was in preschool, and he just came back from preschool. Anyway, he comes inside, and I see him, and I could see that he had this, like, kind of like distraught look on his face, like usually when he'd come back from preschool, he was always so like energetic and jolly and like happy to see us and, give us a hug. But yeah, this day he just like, he didn't like run to us. He didn't like try to get that hug. And then he just sat down on the couch, and he wanted to use his tablet, and he wanted to watch something on YouTube. And yeah, I was like, something didn't feel right about the whole situation. And I was like, I kind of realized, like, yeah, he's trying to escape from what he's feeling, kind of like what we often do as adults, right? We'd rather watch YouTube or distract ourselves in some other way to kind of sort out the emotions that we're feeling. And so, I told him, like, okay, what happened at school? And he was like, I want to watch this. And he was like, stop talking to me. And then, eventually I just had to like take away, the tablet, and just have him like, sit down. And I just told him, like, whatever, whatever happened, it's okay. I just said to him, you look like you're really sad right now, and I just want to know, like, just what happened, and can you tell me? And and then he told me that he heard his friends talking about going to kindergarten and how he was scared that he wouldn't see them again.
Aw.
And he's like, oh yeah, they're going to kindergarten, and it seems like they're gonna go soon. And then I told him his name's Ryoma, and I said, Ryoma, I said, did you know that you're also going to kindergarten? And he was like, I am? He was like, I'm going to kindergarten. I was like, yeah, you're going to kindergarten too. And he's like, oh, that's great. He's like, oh, okay. And then he was like, just like so happy, he was like, he was able to, anyway, it was a simple thing, but like what I realized is like just seeing him like try to avoid, his own emotions, really reminded me of myself, like, oh wow, like, yeah, I do that, I do that all the time. And I just felt like really, I just felt really happy that I could sit there, and help him to kind of stop, just to like pause and process. Okay, what are you actually feeling? Feeling that sadness, feeling the hurt, but not, not staying there. I mean, you know, getting to, okay, what was at the core of that? And then, I mean, like in this situation, the reality was, it was a very simple thing, but for him, it was like, it was a very, painful thing for him to think about, leaving, like losing it, like his friends and his friends going away, and being left, being kind of left, this kind of fear that we all feel sometimes, right? So yeah, I realized, it was nice that I could do that, and I think I was able to do that because of, the different, like the training that I've been through, the counseling that I've received, and the coaching I've received. Because yeah, I realized that, that wasn't really something that happened very much when I was a kid. Parents like sitting down and like really trying to help me to like process what those emotions are. Yeah, so it's still like, it's a work in progress. I mean, he's still like, constantly on the screen, and there's constant battle there. But yeah, I feel like it's, those kinds of important moments where I want to be able to kind of step up and provide that space where he can, honestly share. And like right now, it's like little simple things like that. Yeah, I'm hoping, if we can keep this kind of practice, these kinds of experiences, that when more challenging things come up as he gets older, that he'll still, he'll have these memories that, oh yeah, I can, my parents are people that I can process this with, that they can be a resource, and they can be, a safe space for that.
Yeah, that's so valuable to have, not only as a child, but definitely as an adult as well. I think we feel even, I don't know, I think even more emotions and on a more intricate level. So it's really great if we can turn to our parents for that kind of support.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of challenged in being honest. I mean, I was definitely open with my kids, I guess, about anything. But yeah, like in the beginning, when I just didn't know how much to talk about sexuality, then yeah, I was kind of tested with my honesty, honestly. Like, for example, like even just the Bible story, Adam and Eve, and then there's the fruit, and then yeah, and then you tell the story, and it's like, yeah, the fruit, it symbolized something else. And then I just,
Right.
when they were really young, I just didn't know exactly how much to say. I mean, now I feel like I'm learning more, and I definitely want to provide an answer that's understandable for each kid. And I'm also learning that it's okay to say sex and explain in a way that they understand it. So, and I feel like having this honesty about that, about sexuality, has helped me so much to be honest about so many other things. So I feel like this really broke down a wall for me. And I feel like now I have like a whole new, a broad honesty level. Yeah, I don't even, like if, yeah, I'm sure there is probably another wall I'll have to break through. But yeah, at this point, I feel like having those talks is good. I'm trying to invite them to have those kind of talks if they find something that's they just have questions about, whether it's a Bible story, of course, but then also just everyday life. And
Right.
so, yeah,
How old are your kids actually?
they are ranging from 4 to 11. So
4 to
4,
11. Okay.
7, 10, and 11.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're able to talk about sex, I mean, that's kind of like going in the deep end of having an honest conversation, right? It's definitely probably one of the most challenging things. I mean, my kids, 5 and probably, yeah, the most we've talked about in that realm is probably, yeah, like the name of the private parts and talking about, oh, this is your private area, and people aren't supposed to touch except for so and so, and your doctor or whatever. But yeah, if you can honestly have those conversations, I think that is definitely, I mean, it's got to test you and stretch you to talk about things that you're not comfortable with as a parent. So yeah, that's awesome that you can have those conversations. And I'm sure working with High Noon and School of Love it's I'm sure it challenges you to even go deeper, right? I know that's one of the great things about being a pastor or being in any kind of, I think, public role where you're trying to teach others, is it kind of really forces you to challenge yourself, to practice the principles that you're trying to espouse into the world. So yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's really cool that you have that opportunity, even though I'm sure it's not. It's not.
It gets easier. I just wanted to say that for everyone. Like, it really does get easier and easier. And I also encourage to start, yeah, simply like you said, you already have conversations about parts of the body, and that's a start, and that can continue. And then if it just naturally flows like that, then this awkwardness can slowly disappear, which is really great, especially when they're older. If you don't have this constant communication and then bring it up later, then that awkwardness kind of builds. And then, yeah, we bring it up kind of more suddenly with all this sort of knowledge that has accumulated that is still in a big question mark box. Is it true or false? And they don't know. Yeah, then it's a lot more work to do. Definitely not impossible, but yeah.
Right. How long have you been with the School of Love, and kind of how long has this been like a part of your world, like this whole, having the sex conversation with the kids, with your children, and like, was that something that you were kind of thinking about even, early on in your parent, your motherhood journey, or is it something that kind of arose in you over time?
It was definitely something that I started more this year actively, just like you said, because I was blessed with this role of being able to do School of Love work. And yeah, I think I've shared before on a previous podcast, but Uncle Dave asked me, so have you spoken to your at least eldest daughter about pornography? And I hadn't. And it just made me question. It was like this honesty conversation in my heart. Why haven't I? And yeah, it's kind of like this feeling of wanting to protect our kids from this evil world, but it's not really protecting, because just not being honest about those ugly things is, in the end, not going to help them. And so, yeah, I started to just bring up the topic more of just talking about healthy sexuality, but then also bringing up that, unfortunately, it's not a reality in this world that, sexuality is being really used like God created it to be experienced. And so, yeah. And then eventually also getting to pornography and talking to them about it. So yeah, it has just developed. It's like a recent thing, to be honest. I am not an expert, but I'm just really grateful for this kind of growth in our conversations as well as our relationship, because I feel like a lot of teenagers, if I think of my own experience and just generally, we kind of feel a block in our relationship with our parents. And I've wondered if not having this communication about sexuality when it just becomes so relevant when we're going through puberty, if that's kind of the cause of the block. I mean, I'm sure it's not in every situation, everyone is so individual, but it could be part of it. Like this whole big missing black hole in our relationship where we aren't really able to, express different things like that we struggle with, maybe sexual integrity or, having crushes or just maybe feeling uncomfortable in ourselves. There's so many things that actually probably many preteens or teens want to get off their chests, but then they don't know where. So, yeah, I'm just hoping that really talking a lot with my kids will develop a relationship where they feel more safe to also bring up any kind of thing like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it is so important, especially as they become, teenagers, go into middle school, high school. Because, I mean, like my experience when I was that age was like everyone was talking about dating and, crushes and who do you have a crush on? And, that was like, I don't know, 50% of our conversations. And then the other 50% was about like video games or, homework. So it's like, even from like the age of like 13, 14, like that becomes such a huge part of what we talk about and what we think about and, our experiences in just day-to-day life. And I think for me, like, I definitely felt like I could be more, like, I felt much more comfortable sharing about this area of life with like my school friends than I did with, with my parents. And I mean, I think my parents are great and, they definitely did, the best that they could. They did an amazing job. But yeah, and understandably, as a parent now, I get how it could feel uncomfortable to have, deeper conversations with your kids, with your spouse, so no judgment on them at all. But I definitely could see how this being a missing, like not really having the space to talk about this stuff in the relationship between the parents and the children. If you think about like, more than 50% of what is on your child's heart or mind is not being brought into the relationship, that's a huge, chunk of your child's world that you don't have any access to, that you're not having any awareness of. And I think, that's, I mean, relationship is basically being able to share our life experiences and be able to see the world through the lens of the other person, to try to understand what that world is like. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like what you're doing is so important, what High Noon is doing and School of Love, bringing in this conversation, especially like, I think I'm really grateful as a young parent, being able to have this kind of equipped with these tools that are out there now and kind of part of the conversation in our community that just, we're not there in the time of, our parents' generation. Yeah, it is definitely something I feel lucky. And yeah, I feel like I mean, I was grateful that, you reached out because I started to also listen to, your some of your other episodes and realize that, yeah, wow, there's so much like education out there. There's so much good stuff out there, so many books out there and stuff that, yeah, we have access to that I could do a lot better job at utilizing and studying up. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting times. And yeah, also big, like, shout out to all parents, like first generation, let's say, or just that generation and above. Yeah, I think, like, I've heard also from other people, like, oh, I wish I had thought about this more. And I totally understand, but I think it, like, I don't understand the whole providence, but maybe just it wasn't yet time, or I don't know. But I feel like now is the time. And yeah, like you said, it's still new and we're learning, but it's exciting. Like now is the time. And then if we can really grasp this change of really making this a family conversation that does not include shame, then this is really changing a big thing. It's really turning culture around. And it's exciting to think, yeah, where will these bring our kids in the future? Like what kind of culture will they then have? I can imagine it being much closer to what God had in mind if we can really keep it up and support them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know like so many young men that are just, so struggling with, all this, the pornography and the kind of the culture that we have right now. And for a lot of them, that's a big reason why they don't feel worthy to receive the blessing or start a family. So yeah, it is so important that we get this culture. I don't want to say like get it right, but I mean really, yeah, try to create that culture of heart where we can, have that kind of conversation, this heart-to-heart conversation. And one other thing that you mentioned, like, was at the time there was a sermon I listened to from one second gen. His name is Shingi. I don't know. I don't know how to say his last name, but anyway, he gave this really great sermon a few weeks ago, and he was saying that one of the things that are important to know or to realize to kind of survive as a unificationist is that a lot of the things that we see in our church is not actually like it's not necessarily a part of our religion, but it's actually more to do with the culture. It's, like seeing it as, oh, this is, one, big influence in our movement is like, Korean culture, for example, right? And I know in the East, there is a much more, tendency in the culture to save face and to, kind of hush down things that, seem a little bit bad or dirty or whatever it might be. So I feel like, yeah, our culture, we are trying to create something that is like unique to our movement and our teachings, and to allow our teachings, I think, to manifest themselves into a culture. And I think, yeah, we were just like, bashing all of these different cultures together and sorting out all the baggage that comes with all of those cultures. And now we're kind of doing the work of actually building something that, that we actually want to raise our children in. So yeah, I think it makes sense that we are where we're at now. I don't think it could have happened faster than it's happening right now. You got to take some time to integrate all of the cultures that make up our community, and even just sorting out the, all of the interracial marriages and figuring that out, that was a big thing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we're making progress, I guess.
Yeah, we totally are. Sometimes it feels like a marathon, but we're getting closer for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to also bring up one thing, like you also mentioned, like helping your child to process his emotions. And yeah, it just was kind of brought to my attention through one of the High Noon podcasts, one of the recent ones, that like even when we're having these conversations openly about sexuality or even about pornography, we still can't expect our kids to be totally honest with us unless they really feel this deep bond of being cared for and being absolutely loved. Because, yeah, that honesty takes courage, right? And that courage is just much easier when they know this, well, they can trust that this grace will be given, right? When they open up about something that maybe happened that they don't, yeah, that they know that maybe they should talk to their parents about, but they hesitate, right? If they don't feel this guarantee of grace or of just understanding, you know what I mean? So this
Right.
close relationship is really, really important to keep cultivating with each of our kids. Yeah, like we try to do one-on-one dates, or those take a bit more time investment. So yeah, one parent shared with me, like he tries to do at least 10 minutes with each of his kids to just really make connection time. And that looks different for each kid, but yeah, I really believe like 10 minutes can go a long way, especially sometimes you live in the same house, but you just kind of miss each other, or it just doesn't get deep. It's just logistics, especially with a spouse. It can also happen.
Right.
But yeah, it can happen with kids too, and we need to cultivate that close relationship. So, and just, yeah, reassert them how much we love them so that they have that safety to be honest with us.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one good time for that is like bedtime, like, when, putting them to sleep. You know, I don't, yeah, I'm not perfect at it, but I think for me that's like the most kind of natural time to just like, be with my son, and try to ask him, about his day, and kind of share with him how much I love him. And yeah, even like, it doesn't even matter like how they respond, to, our affection, our love. Like, just, I think just doing it consistently, telling him, how much I love him and how precious he is. Yeah, he always tells me whenever I say, I love you so much, and he says, I already know that. Why do you keep telling me? Like, I always think, yeah, but someday you'll appreciate that I tell you this. So. But yeah, just,
No.
I think just front. It's kind of like front loading the love. Before they have those difficult times. You're loading it up so that they know that love is there, and they feel full of it, so they can trust and more easily go to you in those difficult times. I think those
Yeah,
just like everyday moments are so important.
yeah. Yeah, and I like also making that bedtime a special time. Just now, my son was going to bed, and I just said to him, "You're great," and
Right.
because I've also heard that, like the messages you play as you go to sleep, they kind of continue into your subconscious mind, and yeah, that's really great if our kids just can feel and believe these things about themselves, like I am loved, I am great, or it could also be other things, but yeah, I think that's really precious.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so one thing I also was thinking about, if we really want to be practice honesty as a parent, it's also so important to be honest with our spouse, right? Because that's like a live example that our kids see. And so, yeah, to just have this honesty as a couple. Yeah, because I've realized like any little secret can really block your intimacy. And then that impacts the whole family. Like, I can just share an example this year. I realized I've been uncomfortable around money, like the topic of money. But I really like the idea of buying some local meat. We live in a sort of rural area, and there's a farm where they have their own cows and they slaughter them right there, and then you can buy fresh meat. And so I was in touch with one friend of mine who sells the meat, and I said, yeah, I'll buy a package. And then I misunderstood the cost. But then she wrote me again about it, and it was much more than I expected. But I felt already obligated to buy it, and it was so hard for me to bring it up to my husband. And even though, I don't know, for some this might seem like a small thing, but it did somehow affect my relationship with him, my intimacy even. And once I finally got it out, it was just so much better, so much lighter. And luckily, we could talk about it and just face my discomfort around money generally, that it needs to grow. And yeah, so this honesty with a spouse is really important. And yeah, I think our kids pick up on this kind of example also, even though it might not be obvious, like if we're hiding something. But yeah, I think our kids just really feel a lot more than we know. Like
Right.
if we were hiding something from someone, of course there are the innocent things like presents or birthday surprises, but yeah, something that we know that it would be better to face, then yeah, it affects us. It makes us usually uncomfortable, uneasy, or anxious in some way. And yeah, our kids can pick up on that.
Right. Yeah. I think kids are so sensitive to that kind of thing. They're like mirrors. They pick up on those little details, those little inconsistencies, or yeah, I totally agree. I think that's probably the best way to teach your kids about honesty, about how to have those honest conversations, is, yeah, letting them see how you communicate with your spouse. Of course, not every conversation they need to eavesdrop on, right? But just to, even like you said, they could feel it. They can feel like there is this lack of tension. There's like the disappearance of that distance, between mom and dad. I think they can pick up on that, right? And I've definitely experienced what you mentioned of like, just having something, like even if it's like a small thing or something that I'm feeling a little bit, embarrassed about, and how that can create this kind of emotional distance, between me and my wife. Yeah, personally, I'm somebody who, like, I tend to avoid talking about things until it starts to build up, and then it doesn't always come out in the right way. But when it comes out, and yeah, sometimes it leads to, like, a fight, or things get heated sometimes. But we are able to kind of close the gap because that stuff does come out. Of course, ideally, it could come out in a more efficient way, but sometimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not alone in waiting, procrastinating to open up about something.
Yeah, it's probably some things I gotta talk to her about after this. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so honesty in parenting, yeah, it's interesting, like if I just kind of reflect on my kids and how honest they are. I mean, I know they know the importance of honesty, and yeah, they like, I think just this reassertion of forgiveness, I think it's so important, and I'm trying to do it more. And yeah, like one friend of mine, she told me, like, look, if you were dishonest about something, it's okay, you can tell us, and I promise I won't scold you. And this promise then helped her kids to open up. And then they were telling everything. And so I've been trying to give these kind of promises to my kids a bit more, because I've realized, yeah, some of them, it's not really that they're dishonest, but they will conveniently leave out information sometimes about little things. So yeah, like recently my son, he was like, oh, what was it? He left something somewhere, and I was like, did you leave this here? And he just kind of avoided the direct question. And I was like, look, I just want to know. I'm not angry or anything. And then he did finally say yes. And then I remembered, okay, I need to thank him for doing that. It's so easy to just be like, okay, finally he told the truth. But I remembered I need to thank him. And I think that's something that I've also become more conscious of as a parent just recently, that it's so important to this small thing, but it's actually really big to just say thank you so much for being honest, or I really appreciate, or good job for telling me about this. Like that's also what they often say. Like if your child comes to you and said, Mom, Dad, like I saw pornography and I'm sorry, or I don't know what to do, then the first thing you say is like, good job, you came to me, that's the right thing to do, thank you so much. And that really empowers our kids, and I really love that. Yeah, I'm trying to practice it more because it's so easy to forget. Like we sometimes nag our kids, like, please do this, please do that. And then they finally do it. And then if we forget to say thank you, then yeah, it's kind of just a bit sad and not so encouraging.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Positively, you want to give that positive reinforcement to, that kind of behavior, and yeah, it make them, know that they're appreciated, and know that that's, that they're always going to, they're always going to have that space, that love is going to come back no matter what. Yeah, I remember one time I broke a frame, and my mom was like, "Who did this?" And I was like, "It was me." I was expecting her to be like, "Thank you for being honest," and she was like, "Why did you do that?" It doesn't always work, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely important.
Yeah, it definitely takes sort of like reprogramming as a parent almost, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
it does.
it
It
is
does. Yeah.
it
Right.
is an initial reaction to react to that honesty.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I could, I haven't been there yet, so it's hard for me to say. Would I do any differently? I think it's important that we can learn from, these, like, we might call it, mistakes of the previous generation, but it's also like, yeah, reality is like, those, just like they got that from their parents, we got a lot of stuff from our parents, and it's something that we're going to have to bring our awareness to, of like, how am I going to react in that situation? Like, yeah, like if my parents talk, my kids someday, I'm sure they're going to be talking to me about, they have a crush on somebody, and like, can I not freak out about that? Can I be like, thank you so much for telling me, and really allow them to be honest about it without feeling like there's something wrong, and the desire to, correct this and make it right. Yeah, it's not easy, but I think, again, it's our own kind of practice of, awareness and mindfulness, and being able to reflect on, like, yeah, what works and what hasn't worked, in our own experiences as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, let's all try to grow as a whole in our honesty, in our parenting. I think modeling honesty, especially with our spouse, but then also being open to our kids' honesty with us. So like really nurturing our relationship, and then really thanking them for being honest. And
Right.
do you have any words of courage to someone who's finding it difficult to being really honest in their parenting?
Words of courage. Well, I would just say that nothing that you are going through is unique to you. Most likely someone else has been through it too. Most likely more people are going through it than you realize. And and allow yourself to be surprised of the kind of miracles and breakthroughs that happen through honesty. And it is scary. It does take courage, and courage doesn't mean you don't feel the fear. It just means that you allow yourself to walk through it, regardless of whether or not you're feeling fearful about it or not. And it requires a level of trust, and trusting in yourself, trusting that you are capable to handle whatever comes next. I think that's the biggest fear when we're honest, is what is going to come next after I share about it. But just have the faith in yourself that you can handle what comes next, and that God will be with you, and God will guide you. Maybe that is your opportunity to discover, who you are, the greatness that you are, and the courage that does lie within you, and the divinity that ultimately lies within you and every single person. And parenting is I think, one of the greatest ways that we get to challenge ourselves and to discover ourselves in that journey. And yeah, I definitely don't say that as an expert, having one 5-year-old child, but I think it's a universal truth that I've heard from many others as well. So yeah, I think that would be my main words of encouragement.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you for the opportunity and everything that you're doing. It is amazing, and I think you're doing a great job, and you are really providing a service to us young parents that is so valuable. So keep it up, and it's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much. I think we can really grow together. Yeah, you also mentioned you're not alone, and your challenges aren't unique. So I think that's also really important to remember. Like, we have each other to open up to and support. Yeah, especially second generation. We grew up quite similarly. We have quite similar challenges. Let's support each other.
Absolutely.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia.
Spread the word and stay connected through YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and our newsletter, which you can subscribe to on our website, schooloflove.org. Really hope to hear from you.